Act 1. The Incident. April 22nd, 2016, Pike County, Ohio. It was a morning like any other in the quiet hills of Appalachian country, but inside three modest mobile homes scattered across Union Hill Road, time had stopped. 8 members of the same family, mothers, fathers, children, were found executed in their beds, shot point blank in the head while they slept. And, in an almost surgical twist, 3 young children were found alive, miraculously untouched. A newborn still nursing from her mother's lifeless body, a toddler asleep on the floor, and a baby lying peacefully between her murdered parents. Whoever had done this had come with a plan, a brutal, deliberate plan, and left behind the kind of horror that would stain an entire county for generations. When Bobby Jo Manley arrived that morning to feed the animals, she didn't expect silence. The Rhodens were loud, chaotic, alive, but today the air was still. And when she opened that front door, she walked into a nightmare. Her brother-in-law was dead on the floor, his face blown apart. There was blood everywhere. It looked like someone had beat the hell out of them, she whispered to the 911 dispatcher. But this wasn't just one crime scene. It was one of 3, and it wasn't over yet. Act 2, Timeline of Discovery. The first call came in at 7:49 a.m. "There's blood all over the house," Bobby Jo whispered. "I think they're dead. Looks like someone beat the shit out of them." The dispatcher asked what county she was in. "It's my county," she said numbly, the words barely processing. And she wasn't wrong. This was Pike County, where everyone knows everyone, and no one locks their doors. That was about to change. In the first trailer, authorities found Christopher Rhoden Sr., shot 9 times, 5 bullets to the face, 3 in the torso, 1 through the arm, as if he'd tried to shield himself. His cousin Gary lay nearby, shot twice in the head. The muzzle of the gun had been pressed so close to his temple, it left a circular burn on his skin. Next door, Frankie Rhoden and his fiancée, Hannah Hazel Gilley, were murdered in their bed. Their 4-day-old baby lay between them, still breathing. Their 3-year-old son, found asleep on the floor. Frankie had been shot 3 times in the face. Hannah was shot through the eye, and then 4 more times. The third house told an even darker story. Chris Sr.'s wife, Dana, shot 5 times in the head, including once under the chin. Their 16-year-old son, Chris Jr., executed with 2 shots to the top of the skull. And Hannah Rhoden, just 19, dead from 2 bullets to the head. Her newborn daughter was found still trying to nurse from her mother's corpse. Before the day was over, a final victim would be discovered. Kenneth Rhoden, Chris Sr.'s brother, murdered in his own trailer a few miles away. 1 clean shot through the eye. 8 dead, 3 children spared. No signs of forced entry. No screams, no shell casings, not even barking dogs. Whoever did this came in like ghosts and left behind a massacre. Act 3, the victims and their life. The Rhodens weren't perfect, but they were family. Chris Rhoden Sr., the 40-year-old patriarch, had a reputation in the area. He'd done time. Rumors swirled about a pot grow operation on his land, maybe even cockfighting, but he was also a father who worked hard, loved fiercely, and took care of his own. His cousin Gary, his brother Kenneth, they were all part of the same tight-knit web. Blood ties ran deep in Pike County. Frankie Rhoden was the heir apparent, only 20 but already raising 2 young kids with Hannah Gilley, his high school sweetheart. Dana, Chris Sr.'s ex-wife, lived in a trailer down the hill with their children, Chris Jr. and Hannah Mae. She was a nurse's aide, known for her smile and fierce devotion to her kids. And then there was Hannah Mae Rhoden, just 19 years old, mother of 2. Her newborn daughter had been born 4 days before the massacre. Her older child, Sophia, was with the father's side of the family that night. That small twist of fate may have saved her life and changed everything, because it would soon be revealed that this wasn't just random violence. This wasn't cartel retribution or backwoods revenge. It was about custody. And Hannah, the teenager lying dead in that trailer, had once written a post online that would come back to haunt the investigation. "I won't give my baby to Jake Wagner, even if it costs me my life." It did. And the baby? She was the reason 8 people were murdered in cold blood. Act 4, Crime Scene Breakdown. The crime scenes were unlike anything Ohio authorities had ever encountered. At 4199 Union Hill Road, the first trailer, officers found Chris Rhoden Sr. lying in a pool of blood, his face nearly unrecognizable from the gunshots. His cousin, Gary Rhoden, was also executed with clinical precision. Both were killed while sleeping or trying to escape. A few yards down, the second trailer revealed Frankie and Hannah Gilley in bed, executed with military-style efficiency. Bullet holes and blood splatter painted the walls. Shell casings were mysteriously absent. The killers had used brass catchers, devices that prevent cartridges from hitting the ground, evidence of premeditation. The third trailer was the most heartbreaking. Dana Rhoden and her children, Hannah and Chris Jr., all killed in rapid succession. The medical examiner would later report that multiple victims were shot 5 to 9 times, most in the head. Some wounds were so close range they left powder burns and stippling on the skin. The killers had moved through the night like trained operatives. No alarms, no forced entries, no barking dogs. They had keys or were let in. They avoided security cameras and left no digital trail. Whoever did this knew the Rhodens, knew their routines, knew where the babies slept and when to strike. And perhaps most chilling of all, the killers had made an effort to spare the children. They weren't collateral. They were purposefully left alive. Because one of those children was the motive. Act 5, Suspicion and Lies. At first, the theories ran wild. A drug cartel hit, a cockfighting feud, revenge for a stolen stash. Sheriff Reeder told the media, "This is a pre-planned, premeditated execution of 8 people." But he also warned, the killer or killers are still out there. Investigators collected over 1,100 tips and conducted nearly 500 interviews. They seized dozens of vehicles and combed through hundreds of acres. The marijuana grow-op found on Chris Sr.'s land didn't help. People whispered of Mexican ties, black market beefs, but there was no evidence pointing south. Instead, suspicion slowly turned inward, to the Wagner family. Jake Wagner had once been Hannah Rhoden's boyfriend. They shared custody of their daughter, Sophia, but the breakup had been bitter. Hannah feared Jake. Text messages later revealed she told friends she would never sign over custody to him, ever. She even wrote it in a will. As the investigation deepened, forensic analysts began to link the Wagners to the massacre in disturbing ways. Jake, his brother George, their parents Billy and Angela, all lived together in a tight, cult-like household. They were obsessed with guns, paranoid about privacy. The family even homeschooled their children and had their own private internet servers. The Wagners had access to silenced weapons, night vision gear, and military-grade planning. They had visited the Rhodens' properties in the days before the murders, allegedly scouting entry points. One witness claimed they had talked about killing them all to get custody. Still, for 2 years, the case remained cold. The Wagners left Ohio, moved to Alaska, and tried to disappear. But the state didn't forget. Act 6, the turning point. The break came in 2018, 2 years after the massacre. After assembling a grand jury and launching one of the most expensive investigations in Ohio history, authorities made their move. In November 2018, the entire Wagner family, Jake, George, Billy, and Angela, was arrested. All 4 were charged with 8 counts of aggravated murder, conspiracy, and tampering with evidence. The evidence was overwhelming. Prosecutors revealed the Wagners had purchased a specialized kit to build homemade silencers, hacked into Hannah Rhoden's Facebook account after killing her, used GPS data and surveillance footage to track Rhoden family routines, forged custody documents, and even wrote up fake wills. Angela Wagner's emails showed her obsession with getting Sophia away from that family. She wrote Hannah's obituary days before the murders. And most damning of all, Jake Wagner confessed. He admitted to shooting 5 of the 8 victims himself, including Hannah. He agreed to testify against his family in exchange for taking the death penalty off the table. Jake Wagner's obituary beat Chiuri the motive: custody. Jake's JOG believed the only way to guarantee full parental control over Sophia was to erase her mother and her mother's entire support system. 8 lives taken to secure 1 child. Act 7, psychology and motive. At the center of it all was a sick, twisted logic. one that turned a custody battle into a massacre. Jake Wagner didn't just want custody of Sophia, he wanted control, complete, eternal control. His world didn't accept compromise, negotiation, or shared parenting. It was all or nothing. Psychologists who studied the case described the Wagner family dynamic as pathologically enmeshed. There were no boundaries, only shared obsession. The children were raised in a climate of paranoia, surveillance, and gun worship. Every threat was met with the mindset of eradication. Angela Wagner, the matriarch, manipulated from the shadows, encouraging the belief that Hannah and the Rhodens were poisoning Sophia's mind, that they were evil, that they had to go. The idea that 8 people had to die for one custody dispute shocked even the most seasoned investigators. Jake's confession was emotionless. He described each murder with clinical clarity, showing no remorse. He believed it was the right thing to do. Hannah, who was just 19, had her whole life ahead of her. She was a mother, a daughter, a sister. In one of her final texts before she was killed, she refused to sign any shared custody agreement. She said, "I won't sign papers. I don't care if it means court." Those were her final words. She was trying to protect her daughter, never knowing it would cost her entire family their lives. Act 8. Aftermath and emotional echo. The arrests rocked Pike County to its core. A family once seen as quiet, maybe odd but harmless, was now exposed as methodical killers. Jake Wagner was sentenced to 8 consecutive life terms without parole. Angela and Billy Wagner accepted plea deals. George Wagner IV, who claimed innocence, went to trial. After weeks of testimony, including his own brother's confession against him, he was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life without parole. The surviving children, Sophia and others left behind, were placed under protection and therapy. But the scars ran deep. How do you tell a child that her father murdered her mother, grandparents, and aunts to protect her? In total, over $3.5 million was spent investigating and prosecuting the case. It became the largest criminal investigation in Ohio's history. Today, the Rhoden homes have been demolished. What's left is memory, trauma, and silence, a silence too deep for words. The prosecutors called it a massacre with surgical precision. But for the families, it was something else. A theft. Not just of life, but of love, of future birthdays, of weddings, of normal Sunday dinners that would never come again. Jake Wagner told the court he was sorry, but as one Rhoden relative said, "Sorry doesn't bring back my family. Sorry doesn't explain why you executed a baby's mother in her sleep. You destroyed us." The Pike County Massacre wasn't just a crime. It was a message about how far obsession